If you ever lost someone before you understood what loss really means, you might understand my story. Because I was only 8 years old when I heard the sound of goodbye for the first time. My name is Ethan Cole, and before I ever learned how to be brave, I learned what it feels like to be left behind by a hero. My father was a firefighter in New York City. He was the kind of man everyone admired. Steady hands, calm eyes, the kind of smile that made you feel safe. People said he ran toward the fire when everyone else ran away. To me, he wasn't just brave. He was invincible. The morning he left for his last call, I remember sitting on the kitchen counter, watching him lace up his boots. The smell of coffee, the sound of his radio crackling, they all felt so ordinary, like any other day. But that morning, something felt different. He hugged me tighter than usual and said, "Ethan, you take care of your mom, all right? Be strong for her." I laughed, "But I'm only 8. He smiled. "Then start now." That was the last thing he ever said to me. The fire broke out downtown, a warehouse explosion. My mom and I waited by the TV as the news rolled in. Flames everywhere, smoke like dark clouds swallowing the city. Then came the silence, that awful kind of silence that means something's gone wrong. Hours later, there was a knock on our door. 2 men in uniform stood there, their faces saying what their words couldn't. My mother fell to her knees before they even spoke. I didn't understand. Not really. I just kept waiting for my dad to walk through that door so I could tell him about the math test I passed or how I finally beat my friend in baseball. But he never came back. Days turned into weeks. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The world kept moving, but ours had stopped. At night, I'd lie awake, listening for his truck, pretending I could still hear the sound of his boots on the porch. Sometimes I'd dream he was calling my name through the smoke, his voice soft and steady. "Ethan, stay brave." I'd wake up with tears I couldn't explain. People said time would heal, but time doesn't heal. It just teaches you how to hide the pain better. School became harder. Kids looked at me differently, as the fireman's son. They thought it was something special, but to me it just felt like carrying a ghost everywhere I went. My mom tried her best. She worked double shifts, smiled when she was breaking inside. Some nights I'd catch her staring at his photo on the wall, and she'd whisper, "He died saving others." But that didn't make it easier. I didn't want a hero. I just wanted my dad. By the time I turned 15, the sound of sirens made me sick. Every time one passed, I'd feel the same ache in my chest, like the world was reminding me that heroes don't always come home. I told myself I'd never be like him. I'd never run toward the fire. I'd stay as far away as I could. But life has a strange way of leading us exactly where we said we'd never go. Because years later, on a cold night under a burning sky, I'd hear the same sound of goodbye again. Only this time, it would be my turn to answer it.
They say you can't outrun your past. I tried anyway. After my father's death, every siren felt like an echo of him, a constant reminder that he was gone and that I could never be the man he was. By 16, I'd stopped talking about him. Stopped talking, period. The grief turned into anger, and anger turned into distance. I fought with teachers, skipped classes, and found comfort in noise. Music, cars, anything that drowned the silence at home. My mom was patient, but tired. Every argument ended with the same words. "You're becoming just like him." But she didn't mean it as a compliment, and I didn't want it to be one. At 18, I left home. I told her I needed space, but the truth was, I didn't know who I was anymore. I took whatever jobs I could find. Mechanic, delivery boy, janitor, anything to keep my hands busy and my mind quiet. One night, I was working late at a gas station. It was raining hard. The kind of rain that makes the streets shine like mirrors. A car skidded off the road, slammed into a pole right across the street. For a moment, I froze. My heart pounded. Sirens, smoke, screams, everything I had tried to forget came rushing back. But then I heard a child crying inside the car. Without thinking, I ran. The door was jammed, the smoke thick. I pulled until my hands bled. The metal cut my palms open. But I didn't stop. I got the door open, pulled the boy out, and carried him to the sidewalk just before the car caught fire. People shouted, lights flashed, and in that chaos, I saw something. A reflection of my father in the flames. It was like he was there, nodding, as if to say, "Now you understand." That night, the local news ran the story. Unknown young man saves child from burning car. They wanted my name, but I refused. Because that name, Ethan Cole, still carried the weight of the man who came before me. The next morning, my mom called. She had seen the news. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just said, "You finally ran toward the fire." And I did cry then. Not because I was hurt, but because for the first time, I felt closer to him and to her than I had in years. Something shifted that night. The anger melted into purpose. I realized that maybe running away from his memory was never what he wanted. Maybe he wanted me to carry it, to keep his courage alive in a world that still needed it. So I applied for the academy, the fire department, the same one my father served in. When I put on that uniform for the first time, my hands trembled. Not out of fear, but because it felt like I was wearing a legacy I hadn't yet earned. I looked at the badge, and for the first time in years, I whispered his name out loud. "Dad, I'm ready." The first time I walked into a burning building, I thought my heart would explode. The radio in my ear crackled with voices, orders, panic, the sound of lives hanging by seconds. The smoke was alive, crawling along the ceiling, breathing like a living thing. I gripped the hose so tight my knuckles turned white. My partner, Mike, shouted over the roar, "Keep your head low, follow me." I nodded, but my legs felt like stone. Inside, everything blurred. The heat was unbearable. It pressed against my skin, each breath like swallowing fire. And then I saw it. A picture frame, lying on the floor, half melted by the flames. A smiling family, frozen in a memory. A father, a mother, a little boy. Something in me broke. It was my childhood staring back at me, burning all over again. I heard the child's cry from upstairs. Without waiting, I ran. Mike shouted, "Ethan, wait!" But I couldn't. Every step I took felt like walking through my own past. The smoke grew thicker. My vision blurred. But I found him. A boy no older than 8, hiding under a bed, his eyes wide, coughing. I reached for him, but a beam fell between us, the flame screaming. "Dad!" the boy whispered through the smoke. It hit me like lightning. I could have sworn I heard my father's voice in that same moment. Steady, calm, echoing in my head. "Ethan, stay brave." I pushed harder. My shoulder slammed into the beam until it cracked. I pulled the boy out, wrapped him in my jacket, and ran for the stairs. The roof gave way. Just as we reached the door, the fire roared behind us, like it was trying to pull me back. We burst into the cold night air. Paramedics rushed in, sirens screamed, but all I could hear was my heartbeat. The boy was safe. He was breathing. That was enough. When I looked back at the building, it was collapsing, a giant glowing skeleton fading into ash. And for the first time, I didn't feel fear. I felt peace. Later that night, Mike patted my shoulder. "Kid, that was one hell of a thing you did in there." I just shook my head. "I didn't do it alone," I whispered, because I knew, somewhere in that fire, my father had been with me. Days later, the department honored me. They called it bravery, but I knew it was something deeper. It was acceptance. I wasn't just his son anymore. I was a man walking the same path, not because I wanted to prove anything, but because I finally understood what he stood for. Courage wasn't about never being afraid. It was about walking through the fire when everything inside you wants to run. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't running anymore. It's strange, isn't it? How one sound can change everything. The sound of fire, the sound of loss, and sometimes the sound of coming home. It's been 20 years since that night. The station still smells the same: smoke, sweat, and steel. Every scar on my hands tells a story. Every breath I take feels borrowed from someone who didn't get to stay. People call me Captain Cole now. They see the uniform, the badge, the calm voice on the radio, but they don't see the boy who once hid under his blanket, waiting for his dad to come home. Sometimes I still dream of him. The same morning, the same words: "Be strong for her." And when I wake up, I realize I've spent my whole life trying to live up to that one promise. Last week, my son asked me, "Dad, weren't you scared your first time in a fire?" I smiled. "Terrified," I said. He laughed. "Then why did you go?" I looked at him, same brown eyes as mine, same stubborn heart, and I told him the truth. Because someone once did it for me. He didn't say anything, just nodded like he understood something deeper than words. And in that moment, I saw myself in him, not the angry, lost boy, but the one who finally found peace in the flames. When my shift ends these days, I walk past the memorial wall at the station, names carved in bronze. Some I knew, some I didn't, but one name I always stop at: Daniel Cole, my father, my hero. I place my hand on it every night before I go home, not as a goodbye, but as a thank you. Because everything I am, every life I've touched, every person I've pulled from the fire is a reflection of what he gave me. There's a saying we keep at the station: fire doesn't destroy everything. Sometimes it forges something new. I used to think my father's death broke me, but now I know it built me. It made me who I was meant to become. Tonight, as I sit here with my son asleep on the couch, the rain falls outside, soft against the window. The same sound I heard that night, all those years ago. Only now it doesn't sound like goodbye anymore. It sounds like home. And if there's one thing I've learned after all these years, it's this: you don't have to be born a hero to live like one. You just have to answer the call when the world needs you most. Because somewhere, out there, another little boy is waiting for his father to come home. And maybe, just maybe, he'll hear my siren and know that he's not alone.